Welcome to Cultural Cultivators. I'm Nicole Salver, and today we're featuring something very special, a story crafted by one of our youth participants from the Unsung Heroes youth podcast program at Bayanihan. Through Unsung Heroes, youth voices from Bay Area high schools unite to learn the art of storytelling, podcast production, and oral history. For many, it's their first time sharing their experiences publicly, bringing forward perspectives that are fresh, insightful, and deeply rooted in our community's diversity. We believe these youth stories matter, and they offer vital new ways of seeing and connect us to the world through the eyes of a rising generation of cultural cultivators. Follow us on all social media platforms at Bayanihan or on Instagram at cultural.cultivators with a K. This episode is hosted by Soluna, a high school junior in San Francisco. Soluna is passionate about theater, dance, and social justice, and she's a proud alum of Sama Sama Cooperative summer camp, where she spent 9 transformative years learning about Filipino culture and history. In this episode, Soluna interviews Juachon, a co-founder of Sama Sama Cooperative and board member of the Filipino American Coalition for Environmental Solidarity. As an advocate for reclaiming what has been lost or erased through colonization, Lisa has dedicated her career to building community, fostering justice, and weaving arts and culture into spaces of belonging for Filipino and diaspora communities. Together, they discuss the origins of Sama Sama, a space where Filipino values like bayanihan, Kapwa, and social justice come to life. Lisa reflects on the importance of teaching young people about culture and solidarity, while Soluna shares how Sama Sama shaped her identity and inspired her commitment to activism. You can follow the Unsung Heroes program on our website at bayanihan.org and learn about the Sama Sama Cooperative at samasamacooperative.org.
This podcast is brought to you by Bayanihan's Unsung Heroes Youth Podcast Program. 10 years ago, on an early summer morning, I walked into the backyard of a house in Berkeley and started a 4-week summer camp. As an outspoken, confident, and adventurous 6-year-old, I had no clue what the summer camp would have in store for me. Sama Sama, a cooperative-run Filipino summer day camp that centers Filipinx language, culture, history, arts, and ecological heritage, shaped and transformed me into the person I am today. My name is Soluna Ibarra-Tacdol, and I'm a junior at Lick High School and have lived in the Bay Area my entire life. I'm passionate about theater, dance, other forms of art, and social justice. I participated in Sama Sama summer camp for 9 years, and after graduating, have been a part of several other youth programs. I had a conversation with Lisa Juachon, one of the founding mamas of the camp. Lisa Juachon was born and raised on Yelamu and Juachon territory, the unceded lands of the Ohlone people. Her people come from the land of salt and rice fields, Pangasinan and Nueva Ecija, Philippines. She has spent her adult life building back and reclaiming what has been stolen, erased, and forgotten due to colonization. She was a co-founding member of Sama Sama Cooperative and a current advisory board member for Filipino American Coalition for Environmental Solidarity. I have known Tita Lisa for almost 11 years now and was first introduced to her before the first year of Sama Sama started, at a meeting as the planning for Sama Sama began. Today, we sit facing each other in Tita Lisa's house as I interview her. We have a conversation in the house I remember so fondly, with the sound of cars, trees rustling in the wind, and dogs surrounding us. On this late summer afternoon in Berkeley, Tita Lisa and I talk and reflect on the creation of Sama Sama, the camp's dedication to teaching campers their history and culture in a wide variety of forms, the positive influence and impact Sama Sama has had on families and campers, and her own hopes and wishes for Sama Sama and its campers. Thank you so much, Tita Lisa, for talking with me for this interview. I'm really excited. So first off, I just wanted to start with, would you introduce yourself?
My name is Lisa Juachon, and I am one of the co-founders and a former member of Sama Sama Summer Camp.
Thank you. So just to kind of start off and just like an intro, can you describe your experience growing up Filipino in the United States?
Good question. So I was born in San Francisco, and I lived all over the Bay Area, Pacifica, San Mateo, Hercules. But I primarily went, I did from kindergarten to 8th grade in Hercules. And Hercules was a community with lots of Filipinos, actually. They were like kind of middle-class Filipinos, so a lot of the families or parents of my friends had professional jobs, worked at PG&E or were nurses or engineers. And at my school, at my elementary school, St. Patrick's, there were quite a few Filipinos.
Okay.
So I felt like growing up, I saw people who looked like me around me pretty much, every day. But outside of that was different. And we had a Filipino association in Hercules, and we would do a lot of celebrations together. We would have parties together. We would do Filipino Christmas caroling together. So it was a good memory for me, and it was an early imprint in what it felt to belong and what it felt to have community. And one little story I remember is we had there was a Filipino independence celebration, and we had a parade in Hercules, and I was Miss Mindanao, and my two other friends were like Miss Luzon and Miss Visayas. It was very cute.
So cute.
Yeah, my mom made my costume and everything. It was really sweet. And then after 8th grade, I moved to the peninsula. I went to high school at a public high school in San Mateo, and there were not a lot of Filipinos. And I really felt the difference. But, I think it was also okay because I learned to navigate what it was like to, have a more diverse friend set. Yeah, and then there was also a very huge economic difference from where I lived in Hercules and then where I went to high school in San Mateo.
Can you explain what exactly Sama Sama is for those who haven't heard of it, and where you got the idea for Sama Sama?
Sama Sama Summer Camp Cooperative is a summer camp program that runs for 4 weeks during the summer. It's geared to kids who are in kindergarten through about 8th grade, and it's a day camp. And it focuses on language, culture, arts with kind of a lens of social justice. The camp is run by the families of the campers who are in the camp. Everybody does a little bit of something, whether it is the parents help plan the camp or even teach in the camp or help with aftercare. And essentially the idea came from, I think for me, from a few different places. As I said, I was one of the mamas who helped co-found it, so it wasn't just me. But at the time, my son was in 4th grade or 3rd grade, and I remember thinking, well, one, we needed childcare during the summer because, you guys are off for 10 weeks during the summer. And two, it was clear that he had asked me earlier in the school year whether or not there were books on Philippine history for his age, and he was only in 4th grade. So I understood from that question is that he was really interested in learning more about his Filipino culture and history, and that sparks a little bit of something in my brain of is there something out there for young Filipino American kids to learn about their culture here in the Bay Area? And there wasn't really anything. Earlier I had worked, years before, I had worked at Galing Bata, and that was kind of also an inspiration. I remember thinking when I worked at Galing Bata, which is an after-school program also for Filipino enrichment, I remember thinking back then, like, oh, I would love something like this for my kids, And so around, like, it was January 2014, and I had met a few other parents who I knew had kids who were the similar age range. I knew about Rice and Beans Preschool, which was also a co-op. And so I reached out to, Tita Fro, Tita Aya, your mom, Gina, and Tita Trish. And, we had our first kind of meeting here, actually. It was like a brunch with your mom and Gina and Tita Trish. And we talked about, the need for, summer care for our kids, but also like a space where, young Filipino kids could learn about their heritage with a social justice lens. And also it being like really experiential and hands-on and like outdoors also. Like I think having it outdoors was really important for us because we knew like, kids are cooped up in the classroom all year. And so it's, so much better to enjoy, and learn outdoors. So that's how it kind of, was conceived.
Yeah. You've been talking about like how exactly like Sama Sama started. And I feel like I remember I distinctly remember one of like the first meetings and we were playing in this exact room while you guys were like talking. And so like, it's fun to like remember all those moments. But could you talk or explain more of the process of like starting it? You started to a little bit, but you just more go into detail about creating the camp in that first year of Sama Sama?
Yeah. So it was January 2014. And in my brain, I was like, okay, I wonder if these other families would be interested in co-creating, this camp. And so we had that initial meeting with Tita Gina and Tita Aya and Tita Trish, and they were all very much like, yeah, let's do it, and most of us also grew up in the Bay Area. All of us had been involved in some kind of arts or like kind of political work or education. And we all saw an opportunity, to create something especially for young kids, elementary age kids. And so after that initial meeting, we started to think about what other families would want to do it with us. And so I think we all had names of families. So it was just like organizing, like we called our families, we had a list. And then we had to think about, okay, well, who is going to actually like be with all of you on a day-to-day? Who's going to be like the main teacher? And I had a mentor, and Teacher Tricia has a mentor named Tina Alejo, Tita Tina, who was my boss actually when I worked at Galing Bata. And Tita Tina is a wonderful educator. She came from the Philippines. She has 2 kids of her own. And I always respected her approach to education. She really centers the child, and she has a way of like translating the diasporic experience. And so we reached out to her and asked if she would like be our main teacher and help, especially with the language part of it. And, maybe a few months later, like maybe just 2 months later, we had another meeting with Tita Tina. We brought in more families, such as Tita Gayla and Tita Fro's family. And I think we even maybe put it out on Facebook, I'm not 100% sure, but we might have. But, each of us brought in a few more families. And then we had our first family meeting, I don't know, maybe like by April or something of that year. And yeah, we had jobs, that people signed up for. And the way it operated, we actually, I think, were influenced a lot by Rice and Beans, because I think, it was good to have another co-op to kind of lean on, like the structure of it. So I think, like there was a jobs list, and each parent or family signed up for a job. And there was like the curriculum team, and there was like the operations and field trips. And so each family or each parent would sign up for a job. And then we had monthly meetings to help plan all together. And then by June, we were ready to run it. Yeah, I think for that first year we ran it for, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 weeks, but currently it runs for 4 weeks. And we also had shifts. So like for the summer camp itself, like each parent would have to do hours, like either for setup or, daytime hours or cleanup. And so it was really powered by all of us, like pitching in. So yeah, that was in a nutshell how it kind of like evolved and started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if you remember this, but we would do surveys definitely after camp to ask like the kids like, what did you think, or like ideas of like, how did this go? I don't know if you remember that.
I remember. I know it goes out online, so maybe it gets missed.
But the idea there is like, we wanted to continue to like let all of you lead in terms of like what was interesting to you, like what was the funnest part, because we weren't going to repeat things that were not, that weren't fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've kind of already started to talk about this, but in Sama Sama we learned about Filipino culture in so many different aspects. Dance, food, language, history, art, gardening, FMA, like so much more. How did you choose what to prioritize in the curriculum?
It's a really great question. So when we initially had our meetings about what we wanted the camp to be like, I think that one of the things that stood out was like making it experiential and hands-on and active. So, to keep you all like engaged. And so, there was that aspect of it. There was also like, what resources do we have in the Bay Area community? Like we had Bangka Journey, who was carving like the bangka. We have so many amazing music and dance companies. And so we also assessed, okay, like, yeah, who could we partner with to come help share and teach the campers? And there was also the aspect of like what strengths we had as parents within the group. So we had, folks who had done a long time organizing, like for various campaigns and sectors. We had artists like Tita Trish, who's a dancer. We had like people like myself who were in FACES, the Filipino American Environmental Justice Organization. And so I think we brought in both like what our strengths were, what we thought the youth or the campers would be engaged in, what felt relevant to you all, and what was also experiential and hands-on and fun and engaging. So language was one of the things that we thought was really important, so we wanted to incorporate language. The Filipino martial arts came because we thought the movement, and Tita Trisha was a dancer, or is a dancer, that was kind of folded in, and partly also because we hired Tito J as a teacher kind of a few years later, like in year maybe 2 or 3. You guys did a lot of like either gardening or visiting a farmer Kristen at her farm, because food is very important to our culture. It's a way that we express ourselves, but there's so many learning opportunities, from cooking to learning about, where our vegetables and produce and plants come from. We tried to like tie in what felt both relevant and what was accessible to us in the Bay Area and within the co-op. I don't know if you remember, but we did bayanihan also.
Yeah.
So like similar with the language, we wanted to like introduce bayanihan as something, and we knew somebody here in the Bay Area who like taught bayanihan. So so that was something that we felt was important and would be fun. Yeah.
You've talked about how important like the outdoors were to Sama Sama. And so each year in Sama Sama we had a theme of one of the elements, as well as a word or two that connected to it. Or would you explain where the idea of this came from and the theme's impact or significance for the camp.
Okay. This is going to sound very funny, but it is partly true.
Yeah.
So I remember at that time when you were young, Avatar was really big.
Yes.
And it was kind of like the thing that you were all watching. And in Avatar, too, they also had elements, water, air, fire, earth. And that actually, like seeing you all kind of be inspired by that and like really find it fun and interesting, like that was a little bit of the inspiration for how we organized the elements in Sama Sama and how they inform the programming. So each year, we take an element, so earth, fire, water, air, and we pair that with kind of a theme like resistance, migration, like very broad themes that feel relevant to us as Filipinos in the diaspora. And we use those just as kind of guides to then like inform the program and the curriculum for that summer. So, for example, this summer, I think it's fire and resistance. I don't know all the details of the curriculum, but one of the years we did fire and resistance was during, the really like big kind of campaign around like Black Lives Matter. And we participated in like a youth march. You probably remember, and you guys led it. And it was like Young People for Black Lives, and there were lots of other young people in that march. And so, it's a way, like to have a guiding theme is a way to also connect to what's happening around us, just like relevant and current political moments. But, thinking about like how it like kind of came up was really seeing you all be inspired by Avatar. And also it just feels like those are like elements are so universal to so many cultures and communities, and with our community too. It was a way to like connect kind of us to our ecosystems and our environment. And so that's where our elements came from. Yeah.
That's so funny. I was like, yeah, because each year we were always obsessed with like a new thing. I feel like we had our Hamilton phase. Avatar was like always there, though. I feel like that was always, it was stuck with us. But you started talking about the social justice aspect of Sama Sama. When I think of Sama Sama, I'm always reminded of how based in social justice and also solidarity it was. Would you talk more about that and why it was so relevant to the education that Sama Sama provided?
Yeah. Well, you can't really talk about the Filipino American experience without talking about how we're woven into this broader community here in the Bay Area and in California and then the world. It's important to learn about ourselves and our heritage, but it's also important to learn about how we're connected to other communities around us. From the farm worker movement and our connection to Mexican Americans, to even today what's happening with Palestine, like how are we connected to the issues that are happening around us? So one really beautiful example is I'll go back to Farmer Kristen and like visiting her farm. Farmer Kristen is a Korean American and she's a farmer. And every year we go, Sama Sama goes to visit her farm, and her farm has like moved from different places. But what's really beautiful is that one, we learn about her heritage crops and vegetables that she is growing for the Korean community. But there are so many similarities too, like our sitaw and the long beans. I don't know if you remember, but one year, she was growing them and it was very familiar to us. And so we can make connections about what it's like to want to preserve our heritage crops. They're doing that in the Korean community, and we are trying to do that in the Filipino community, and how important it is and how meaningful it is. I think that part of the social justice and the solidarity lens is to teach the campers, we continue to learn about ourselves in order for us to connect to other communities around us. Yeah, so I think that it's been like really a part of like Sama Sama. It's been a part of like when they're developing the curriculum, like what's happening around us, like what are the current events, what feels relevant to the youth. which is like kind of like a core thing about how we like develop the program and want to provide an experience for the campers and their families.
So Sama Sama is not only a summer camp, but it's also this loving and caring and supportive community. How and why do you think that was able to come to be? And what does the Sama Sama community mean to you? And how has it impacted you?
It's a very sweet question. Yeah, it is. It's funny. It has unexpectedly felt like it's like a big family. And, I think partly because we didn't really all know each other super, super well. We knew each other through, I think, trusted relationships and trusted organizations we were a part of. And as we built this thing together, I think our relationships really grew, and we were building it for ourselves, but for each other. And so I think, in that way, the relationships got really deep really fast. And it was not without conflict. I think that anything that's really worth building together, you're always going to have conflict, and that's natural. But I think also when you have conflict, it brings you together pretty deeply and fast. And it's like you're raising your kids together. And so that's like kind of like a big deal, It's very fun, and it can also be very challenging. And so to have other families to lean on together to go through like raising a family in community, I think naturally you become very tight. Your bond becomes very tight. So yeah, to answer your first question about like it, like how did it become as such? How did we become so tight? I think that's a reason. Like when you're working on something together, yeah, you just grow, you build relationship. And then what was the second question?
What does the Sama Sama community mean to you, and how has it impacted you?
Well, I think what's significant, or what it means to me, is that when we are super resourced, I think that we have like a lot of resources in our community, like people resources. We may not have a lot of money, but we have people power, like truly. And I think that it's really so amazing to me that we built something like this, together, like to see families coming together to like, meet a need for a program and care for youth is like really amazing to me, And it means, I think about bayanihan, the concept of bayanihan a lot. Like, bayanihan is depicted by people carrying like a bahay kubo on their shoulders, and there's all those people like carrying this house. And I feel like if you have a goal or something that you want to pursue, you can always do that. You can always make that happen when you have like the right people around you, And I think that means Sama Sama has a lot of bayanihan for me in it. How has it impacted me? Well, as a parent, I feel like Sama Sama helped raise my kids with me, I think. Like my kids had automatic 20 aunties and uncles around though, which was amazing, And in the absence of having a village, like how your grandparents or my parents grew up in the Philippines with a village of aunties and uncles and people who've known their family for generations. That's what Sama Sama, that's what it is for me. That's how it's impacted me. And it's like that Sama Sama is like my village or my barrio. I think that for me, for my kids and my husband, my partner, I feel like, we feel less alone, in this country, like in America. You can get into a rat race of just like living in your own little home and not be connected to community. That can easily happen.
Yeah.
It's not automatic that that community is built around you. And so you really have to work at it. You have to work at building relationships and community. And so I think it's really impacted me in a good way in that, I had a community around me as a parent helping me raise my kids. And I hope I've supported the families too in Sama Sama to like be an auntie to their kids. Also, I'd want to add too that it was a place where we could like express our values too, like of bayanihan, of Kapwa, our social justice values. It was, a community of families who were aligned in that way. And yeah, I think we just reinforced those values being together and being able to practice those values together. So, yeah.
So when I think about a favorite memory of Sama Sama, I always think about the first few years, and I think about your backyard and swinging on your swing and playing in the garden or climbing up your fig tree and playing up there, playing in the tree. And I don't know, I feel like I always think of your house and your backyard, but also just being outdoors and being surrounded by nature and also learning about nature, and just like the different elements. And so for me, that's like my favorite, or like a special moment of Sama Sama for me. And so can you paint a picture of a specific or favorite memory from any of the years of Sama Sama, and what makes it so memorable for you?
Oh gosh. Well, do you remember when we used to go camping at Front Porch Farm? Oh yeah, along the river. So yeah, really like what a wonderful place. So beautiful. Yeah, so beautiful. On the river, we got to see, like, it was our own campgrounds. I think it might have been that first year, and there. Do you remember the big circular tent? There was like this big circular tent.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the first nights we were there, we sang karaoke. And I remember Tita Tina and Karani, just like belting out Eraserhead songs, and Tito Mike, singing. Like everybody was singing. But I loved that moment so much. And we were like in the middle of like, like it was like our own campground, and we brought our whole karaoke setup. We were singing at the top of our lungs till really late at night. And I just remember like all the adults and the kids singing along. And that's like one of the memories that sticks out in my mind, is us all singing together. And then after that summer, we'd like sing karaoke every camp. Yeah, every time we go camping, it was always karaoke. And I love the fact that, it was the adults and the kids singing together. It was so sweet.
Yeah. I really loved Front Porch Farms. That was so much fun.
I know.
Like going down the river and then having one of the I feel like I remember Tito Tom always pushing us up the river so that we could go back down again.
Oh my gosh, I know, it was such a special place. Nice.
What were your original hopes for Sama Sama and the campers, and have they happened?
Yeah, I feel like my original hope was to, do this like Filipino summer camp with other families. I didn't really have like a longer vision than that. And the fact that we're now in year 10 and we've had, I think this is the 11th camp that's happening now, with like all new families, there's like, I think double the amount of campers that there were when we started, almost double, to me is like a huge success. And like also I think speaks to what families need and want for themselves, like they want a place where their kids can really learn about who they are as Filipinos and Filipinos in the world, Yeah, like I think that my initial hope was met even by that first summer when we did it, meeting all of the families and just doing it, like just making this project happen. But that it's lasted a decade is like, whoa, like it wasn't even in my mind that it would like, last that long. But I'm really happy for, yeah, I'm just happy for all the families that could participate. Yeah.
It's insane. 11 years, 11 summers, like.
Yeah, 11 summers is the 11th
crazy.
summer. Yeah, 11 camps. I know. I mean, I remember you when you were so small.
Now that it is 11 years after the first summer of Sama Sama and all of the original campers have graduated and are either high school or college age, what do you hope for us? What are your hopes for current and future Sama Sama campers?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I hope that, I hope that each camper learns something about themselves at the camp and learn something about their Filipino identity. And I hope that they take that experience and continue to learn about themselves and continue to learn about their identity and continue to question injustices and be able to see through a lens of, the Filipino American experience that is, it's very diverse. But I think that our experience as both immigrants and diaspora are so relevant, in today's world. And, I hope it provides a lens by which they can look at other people's experiences and themselves through a lot of compassion and through a lens of solidarity. Yeah. And I mostly hope that when you look back on your experience of Sama Sama, it's it feels good, there's warmness. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I love Sama Sama, so yeah. Is there anything you wish for past campers that they take from their Sama Sama experience? And what parts of the Sama Sama education do you especially hope that they carry with them into the world?
Well, being what the world is today, I hope that you take part of your history and you're able to keep that and use that to look at the world around you with critical eyes and a critical lens, because injustices continue to happen and things aren't just given to us. Democracy is not just given to us, and our rights and are just not given to us. And I think that it's important to not take it for granted and to continue to stand up for what's right, be vocal, participate, as much as you can. And I hope that campers learn that, and they learn not to be afraid to speak out, and they learn not to be afraid to march in the streets and speak out on what's right, And then I also think that it's to continue to learn about who they are as people in the world, because you'll evolve and change as you grow. And I think part of the Sama Sama experience is learning, that continued growth and learning about yourself and the people around you and the community around you and the world around you.
This is kind of what you've touched on, but what impact or mark do you hope Sama Sama leaves on campers, families, our community, the world, etc.?
Yeah, I think maybe creating a space, when you see something that's needed, that you're able to mobilize your resources and your networks to create something and to do something together. I think that is a mark, that's important. And, we are cooperative and we all contribute to the making of Sama Sama. And it's important to realize sometimes if you can't just kind of wait for something to happen, you do it, you build it. And I think building new ways of doing things too, like the cooperative way, I think that's important.
Is there any last thing you want to add about Sama Sama or anything you want to talk about in particular?
Yeah, well, I'm interested in knowing, how old are you now?
I'm 16.
Yeah, so you're 16. Mm-hmm. And you started in Sama Sama when you were
6. So when I was, just finished kindergarten.
Yeah, like 10 years ago. Can I ask you questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You talked about your earliest memory of like being in the garden back there. What are like what other things that are like feel fond to you, like good memories of Sama Sama? Like what are other just like what are some other favorite memories you have?
So many. I feel like each summer, like it just like it grew and grew. It always had something to do with food, and like making food, cooking with Tita Eileen in the kitchen. I always loved that. Making sagor, like just like making different foods, banana Q. I remember I made that. I ended up making that for like my lola and my lolo and like my aunties and uncles, and they all really loved it. And I don't know, I like for some reason they would always bring it up to me afterwards, and they'd be like, "Oh, are you gonna make it for us again?" And so I feel like I always loved like bringing back the things I learned at Sama Sama to my lolo and lola, or like whenever I like learned new words, like when I learned like magandang umaga and I would say it, they would be super happy. And like it would just like, I just remember it making them happy and like them laughing and giggling with us. And so those are some of the memories I have. Also like rapping, and making music, Ruby Ibarra, and like going and hearing her live for the first time, like it was so awesome. And any like learning music that felt deeper than just like something on the radio, like meant so much that it was also like made by people who were like Filipino and had something to say, and like being able to do that with a band all from Sama Sama, and like it was so awesome. So yeah, those are some of the things that like warm my heart.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool that, speaking about culture like dance and music, like we had access to that. And it was also that you all had fun doing it.
Yeah.
And like, learning like songs like from Joey Ayala or like the River song, like Rivers, felt really like meaningful and so close to us too, like Tito Paul was part of Baying the River song and the history behind it and the connection to the Chico River and the attempt to dam that river. Yes, that I loved, I love that you're all able to like learn it and you enjoy doing it. Yeah. And so like now that you're 16 and you're not in Sama Sama anymore, has like your perspective on Sama Sama changed, or like, does it mean something different to you like now that you're older and like you've had different experiences with other organizations and stuff too?
I definitely think I've realized how lucky I was to have Sama Sama, because I think about everything I know and the way in which I like view the world is so heavily impacted and informed by what I learned in Sama Sama and like the values I have and what I find important, my sense of community and like love of community and social justice. I think like I wouldn't be the same person I am today without Sama Sama. And going into spaces, I feel confident in my identity and being a Mexipina, Chicana, and Filipina. I always feel like Sama Sama was an avenue for me to understand and be supported in figuring out who I am and my identity. And like I truly don't think like I would be the same person and love who I am and just like understand the world in the same way. And so I think that's how I always view it. And it was there for me throughout like growing up. And so I think that it was definitely there when I needed it to be. And it's just like the perfect like time to figure out who I am and my identity, and so I can feel confident in it like going into high school and like later college. So yeah, I think that that's how what Sama Sama really like, I look back at it and that's what I think about. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think like Filipinos are, we're so diverse, and within Sama Sama, it's like we have so many identities, like we're plural identities. And so one thing that I really appreciated about Sama Sama too is that, it's like you are Filipino and, everything else that you bring. And it's like, we just love to like, be able to include that, and recognize those, like, whatever it is, like your cultural, your gender identity.
Yeah.
And it is like a value of ours to like give space for youth to like explore that and to understand that, it's not just about being Filipino, but it's all of who that camper identifies as, which is like really beautiful.
Yeah, I think a lot about like the intersections of my identity, and this is always something like my mom has said, and my mom and my dad have like taught me, but also I think Sama Sama also like said as well, was that being Mexican as well as being Filipina didn't make me any less Filipino than like kids who both their parents were Filipino. Like being like, my parents have always been like, do not say you're half Mexican and half Filipino. You're just Mexican and Filipino.
Yeah.
And so I never felt like less than at Sama Sama when it came to like my Filipino identity. And so that's like one of the ways like I've felt so secure in that identity, because I was always made to feel like, yes, everyone's different, but we love you for those differences, and you're just as Filipino as the rest of us, which I don't think some kids get. And I think that that's really hard. And I feel like in other spaces, I've definitely felt that, not when it comes to like just different aspects of my identity. But because I've had Sama Sama, I know I'm Filipino, and I know I'm Mexican and I'm Chicana. Like, I know that that's all a part of me, and I'm not like less of it because of a certain thing. So yeah, that's what I think about. Oh, that's so great. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah. Would you recommend Sama Sama to other families with younger kids?
Yeah, I would recommend Sama Sama. It's been like a couple, I think this is like the second year that I haven't been, because I graduated, but and I don't know. I guess it's always ever changing and growing, but I would definitely recommend Sama Sama. All the teachers and the community and the people who are there. Like, there's no other summer camp like it. You can't really get it anywhere else. And I think I would for sure recommend Sama Sama. As the interview ends, I take a look around this room from that original Sama Sama meeting. After talking with Tita Lisa, I think about how grateful I am for everyone who made my experience at Sama Sama possible. Tita Lisa, all the other families, the teachers, my friends, and my own parents. I think about the dedication and commitment my own parents made every summer, making sure we had a way across the Bay Bridge each morning and afternoon, from SF to the East Bay, every day of camp. In the short second I had of explaining my favorite moment in Sama Sama, I didn't do it justice. When someone brings up Sama Sama, every single memory comes to mind. Every emotion, every person, every story, and every new thing I learned. For me, Sama Sama is playing games in the sun, in the garden, climbing a fig tree, burning our babayin names into the end of a scream of sticks, or practicing FMA outdoors, learning to cook lunch or merienda in the garden. Sama Sama is laying down on a banig underneath a big tree, honoring the 4 elements, learning to rap and sing Ruby, Ibarra, and Discarte Namen songs. Sama Sama is sharing and learning the stories of the resistance of our ancestors. Over the course of 9 years, I had the experiences of a lifetime, where I learned about important topics like decolonization, social justice, storytelling, resistance, immigration, solidarity, relationships to the earth, and more, but was taught in a way that emphasized the connection it has to my own culture and history. Sama Sama has helped guide me to exploring my own passions, grounded me in my own identity, and surrounded me with a thriving community. At Sama Sama, we always learned the importance of storytelling and making sure our families, our ancestors, and our own histories are told and shared. We learned how storytelling can be passing down knowledge and culture, but also how it has been and can be a form of resistance. By documenting Tita Lisa, my own, and Sama Sama's story, I believe that I have been able to use what the camp has taught me and continue that tradition of storytelling and resistance.
I think one of the most powerful lessons from this conversation is this enduring importance of bayanihan, the Filipino value of collective effort and shared purpose, especially in these challenging times. Lisa's description of Sama Sama as her village feels particularly timely. I mean, in a world where threats to equity, justice, and even our simple joys seem to grow daily, this image of people coming together to carry a house or a bahay kubo is both a call to action and a source of hope. See, Sama Sama wasn't just a summer camp. It was a sanctuary of love, of solidarity, and shared values. And it gave Lisa's children and all the children that attended an extended family network. A network of 20 aunties and uncles, helping to raise all of these children with compassion and care. This collective effort was rooted in values like Kapwa, meaning shared humanity, and a commitment to justice. It's a reminder to us that in these moments when division and fear are amplified, building intentional community is one of the most radical and necessary acts we can undertake right now. And I think this lesson matters more than ever, because as challenges mount, the work of creating spaces that center joy, that center belonging, and center equity becomes urgent. Bayanihan teaches us that we are not alone. And when we share the load, we find the strength to protect what matters most. You know, the story of Sama Sama beautifully embodies the spirit of bayanihan, a collective effort where everyone comes together to carry the weight of something meaningful, like lifting a home, a bahay kubo, as one. I think this resonates deeply with the journey of this podcast, because Sama Sama was built on collaboration, shared values, and a commitment to raising children in a community rooted in culture, solidarity, and care. And that was the same intention I had with Cultural Cultivators, to create a podcast with the intention of inspiring my son and future generations toward collective care and collective liberation. On that note, it's with a very heartfelt announcement that this is going to be the second to last episode of the Cultural Cultivators podcast. But don't worry, this isn't a goodbye. It's more of a see you soon. Because in this holiday season, we are still carrying the spirit of Kapwa forward as we take the time to refresh, reflect, and reimagine. And in 2025, we will be back with a fresher look, but still deeply rooted in what makes this podcast special: community, collaboration, and the heart of care that connects us all. This isn't just a new chapter. It's an invitation to dream bigger, to build together. And just like Sama Sama, this next phase will be shaped by the spirit of bayanihan, a collective journey where your voices and your stories remain at the center. So, on behalf of the whole Cultural Cultivators team, thank you for walking this path with us so far. We've done 2 years and 40 episodes, and your support has been the foundation of everything we've built. So, as we head into 2025, please stay connected, stay inspired, and stay hopeful. And we will get ready to cultivate something even more extraordinary for you in 2025. I can't wait to see you there. This episode of Cultural Cultivators was hosted by Soluna, brought to you by the Unsung Heroes Youth Podcast Program. This project was made possible with support from California Arts Council and California Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. You can visit them at calhum.org. The podcast is co-produced by John Reyes, Kindred Kapwa, and Balai Creative. Stay in touch at cultural.cultivators on Instagram.